Hey y'all, just coming at you with another mid-gamer SSF vid here. It might be a bit rambly again, trying to get it out of my head. Maybe put something out there that's slightly different from the, the temple meta and the Jillian Divines, because at least on YouTube there's not much catered to mid-gamers and SSF. So, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about anything. I'm just a D4 refugee here. Kind of no POE 1 experience, playing POE 2, slow game movement style. It's like the slow food movement, just enjoying the journey and flavors. And I'm in slow because it took me about 40 hours to complete the campaign and interludes. So if you're allergic to methodical gameplay, then look away now. But if you want to learn a thing or two about crafting and builds, then stick around. This will be more of a full build guide versus the previous vid was just tidbits. This one will be all the tech and gear and synergies of Crit Oracle, plus the Warcry tech from G-Core, and somebody else's video I saw about the Walking Calamity, Rage Gen tech, and then I added the Keystone for Primal Hunger here, which helps with the Rage Gen. And well, maybe this is a bit new because you lose all the damage from Rage, but this means you get max Ancestral Warrior Totems. This can go up to 10 if I just keep casting them with all of the skill effectuation in the Oracle tree. And then as well some recent upgrades to tankiness and quality of life with the guts notable down here. It's big quality of life. In addition to either Adalui's or Life Tap, and as well as Mind of Mana. So I'm actually feeling pretty tanky. I haven't died at maps in a long time. I've died a couple times to Citadel bosses recently when I'm not actually paying attention too well. Anyways, so I always like to start with the why and then get into the how and the what. So I basically cobbled this together to take on because of SSF, basically to take on Abyss and Ritual farming for crafting, because you need all the Abyss desecration currency to craft the weapons and armors and stuff. Look at my I had a previous video about crafting, especially armor items on the cheap. And then, of course, Ritual for all the elements and stuff. And it's nice to kind of sit down a persistent AoE in the kind of ritual window and this as well, and then you just kind of run around, and the damage actually with 10 Ancestral Warrior Totems is surprisingly good. It just takes a hot second to ramp up, but the damage is good enough for kind of like a regular endgame, not like Giga Juice temples. You won't hear me talk about how big my snake is or anything like that. I haven't touched the temple since early maps. Maybe I will now after the patches, but at that time it took too long and I was kind of squishy, so I kept dying to the architect and it was just resetting. It felt bad. So that's how I've kind of ended up here. And just to flex a little bit, this is not like the best build ever, but I'll say at least that it's somewhat unique. I checked POE Ninja. You filter for Ancestral Warrior Totem and Primal Hunger, and filter for Oracle. There's basically only one other person, and they are not quite doing exactly the same thing. Their Ancestral Warrior Totem is for Armor Break. So I've seen a lot of YouTube videos and haven't seen exactly the same thing. It's not like the most complicated of interactions, but it's pretty smooth and safe with the totems, a nice quality of life, and I'm starting to get that sense of feeling like a god, as Mark says. So maybe this will help other SSFers or private leagues, somebody starting a private league. So, as they say, that poverty is the father of innovation. I've implemented some upgrades now, but even without these upgrades, which I'll show, this can get to Arbiter. No fancy jewels or uniques. Check out my previous video. Level 18 gems, 4 sockets, no perfect jeweler's orbs. Pretty mid gear, no annoyance, no catalyst, nothing valid, no herald chaining. Just basic scaling through the tree and 10 warrior totems. Okay, and before getting into the build and the requisite showcase, last video I talked about weapon crafting, but I'll literally do it now and then walk it into Uber Arbiter. So as before, as far as I've seen, this is the only SSF super cheap deterministic way to get a high Phys DPS weapon. Okay, so you can go elemental and do it in a few other different ways, but in terms of a Phys weapon, this is the only way. This is the only deterministic way that I've seen, and it relies on this desecration mod here. So when you look at, and there's no essences that can guarantee this high percent Phys mod. So if you look at the POE 2DB and looking at some of these weapon types, you look at Maces, it has this desecration mod, increased Phys, and it comes with reduced attack speed. That is not as impactful for Ancestral Warrior Totems, which I'll get into later after watching Palstron's video. But you look at these other weapon types like bows, there's a lot of companion damage or proc stuff, elemental stuff. Crossbows, a lot of like grenades and elemental stuff. Talismans, like companions, minions, empowered, elemental. So basically, Maces are the only one that has this desecration mod. So and then I watched Miso X Shiro's video, is Hammer of the Gods build, and he basically has almost exactly the same mace except for this onslaught, and it's corrupted triple socket, and his his augments are a bit different. But he says his mace was 100 div. And then, look at Jorgen. I also saw Jorgen's video recently, and his mace is similar, but again, not quite the same. And, I crafted mine on super cheap and higher Phys. He was using his for a bit different. His was like a lightning build, and I think his second mace was actually more similar to my high Phys one. But I'm basically just going to run through it right now. And I've never seen anybody ever put this on YouTube yet, so maybe this will actually help somebody, and if somebody's seen this before and I just haven't seen it, then you can let me know. But I'm literally going to craft on this mace right now. It's, fairly similar to what... it's a fairly similar process, but this one will be super, super cheap. Mine, I actually... did a bit of fancy stuff with omens to get the extra Phys, but if you're not going for this extra Phys mod, you can basically start with any type of mod. So this, and any mod, because you're going to be adding everything. And for this, you basically need a Greater Essence of Abrasion, Omen of Sinestral Necromancy, you need to get the Kurgle mod, because the Desecration is Kurgle. If you look at this here, you see this is Kurgle, and it's basically guaranteed because there's only 3 Kurgle mods, so you don't need to use Abyssal Echoes, so you'll always get this mod. The range may vary, but you'll always get it. Then you fill out the suffixes, you get the Perfect Essence of Battle for +5 to all attack skills, and then you just quality it up. So I started with this one because this mace here I'm just going to show you because it actually has the third kind of Phys damage mod that you can get on a mace. So then you basically just add this. So now you add the flap damage, and then you want to hit the prefix with a Kurgle, and then I'll just reveal this later. And then just fill out the suffixes, and then I'm going to hit it with a, let me just pin that, and then I'm going to hit it with this. So there you go. So now I'm going to take this to the well, and hopefully this goes according to plan. Reveal. You get that increased Phys, reduced attack speed, guaranteed. This one's kind of a lowish roll. Wait for the dude. Okay, then I'm gonna bring this back home. And just pin my previous mace here, then we will quality this up and add 2 sockets and pin this. So I literally just crafted that super duper cheap and got basically higher Phys damage, like higher like sheet Phys damage. Like this one has extra Phys, which I don't think that shows up here. But this is just like a super deterministic high Phys DPS weapon. And this works for, again, Ancestral Warrior Totems because you don't really need to worry about attack speed as much. Alright, I am going to try Arbiter. This new mace that we just crafted. I'm gonna keep. I tried Arbiter before with without some of these upgrades, my recent upgrades, but it did not go super well. So I'm going to keep these for now and see how it goes just with this mace that we crafted. I keep going to his mechanics. I wonder if that damage is probably not terrible. Oh god. Fucking corridor. Yep. Fucking corridor. Well, that was no good. That damage is there. Not great for Arbiter, but I think the damage. Well, can't quite take down Arbiter yet, but I feel like the damage is there. It's pretty ethical. Would have been an ethical fight if I could just do mechanics. Unfortunately, I cannot do the mechanics yet, so I'll have to try again later. Anyways, getting into the how of the build. So how did we get here, and how does it work? In terms of progression, you know, I tried Ice Wolf. That was good for going through the campaign, but it's like once you start losing DPS because you don't get weapon upgrades, or you get to end game and you're not trading, so you're not getting upgrades, then low DPS equals feel bad because you're not freezing, and then you're just clawing at the guy, and it just does not feel good. And also, it just feels kind of less interesting. This was my final, the one decent talisman that I had. You know, not a great base or anything, but it was good enough. But it also just felt less interesting, you know, because I kind of like that hipster off-meta thing, like Mathel has said before. And, you know, on Patexel podcast, they also said the same thing. You know, Ice Wolf is basically a package deal. It's basically all the same. Just, you know, kind of feels bad. You watch all the streamers, like, look at me, one-shot everything in the game, and you know, if you're a mid-gamer SSF, you just cannot get the same DPS, and then it doesn't feel good when you're you're not hitting anything. And you know, they all have Sign, Accio, so I finally got this after killing Arbiter once, but you know, this makes a huge difference, I'm sure, when you're playing Ice Wolf in terms of freezing. And then also, after that, I tried the Bear, you know, like doing a Rampage Bear for a fast map traversal, which was okay, but it was very tedious, kind of starting and stopping through the map. And then I started combining that with the Warcry tech from Dreamcore and with the Mace, and started adding the Ancestral Warrior Totem in. But I could only get a few at a time, so this is before I started doing the Primal Hanukkah thing. And a few times I tried running kind of like a self-Sunder build, but you really need lots of attack speed for that, and if not, it feels really bad. Like you'll just get interrupted all the time, people will be hitting you, and that really did not feel good. So I was theorizing about Ancestral Warrior Totems. You know, I saw that Palstrom video about how it's really bad. But I think his build was a bit different just because it was running Molten Blast, which you really want to just be spraying out projectiles all the time. Whereas running Sunder, it's like you kind of just need to hit once and hit big. And then once you start, like on a boss, you can stack up 10 of them, and you do like a rolling slam or something, and it's actually pretty decent DPS at that point. And also with Ancestral Warrior Totem, you don't have to worry about attack speed as much. Because they have this, if you watch this video, they have this kind of inbuilt attack time added to the skill, which is kind of hidden in the game, but it's shown on POE 2.db. And then I also kind of tried, you know, I got this choir after killing Zesht, only level 18, but I tried like a plant and spark with choir. And that was okay, but with SSF gear, it just didn't feel even quite the same DPS as Ancestral Warrior Totem Bear, especially trying to solve the single target DPS. So I was theorizing how to do bossing with the Ancestral Warrior Totem, and trying to get them out fast enough. Even with just the Warcry tech alone, it was not enough. So then I had this idea, or maybe I saw it in somebody else's video about Primal Hunger, and you know, as I kind of said before, maybe it's a bit new to do this because you're losing a lot of damage after clicking this, because then you don't get the effect of rage, basically. You know, you don't get this rage effect, so there's a lot of stuff you can stack with rage. Just, I mean, each rage is 1% DPS, but there's a lot of other stuff that you can, like this node here, for example, is a big DPS increase when you're stacking all rage. But you can see here, basically, I've spec'd out of all of the rage stuff on the tree, and that improves how fast I can get the Walking Calamity out. I even tried switching over to Shaman for a bit to see if I could get even more rage gen, but it's actually not required. Even just clicking this, you know, just clicking this 3 or 4 times, and this is just enough to constantly spam. I almost rage quit after failing the Trial of Sekimas, because, you know, I was like running a melee Smash Bear and Rampage Bear, and I almost rage quit, but luckily I kind of powered through it and just switched over to Chaos Trials. And then I felt just like Shaman had like half the power of Oracle. So getting into the Dreamcore tech again, the Warcry tech. So with your, you know, just go watch the Dreamcore video about it. He goes into much more detail, but with Ferocious Roar, it's actually very important to quality this, because this makes a big difference. It improves it by like a lot, like 50%, because it goes from 2 to 3 rage per power. You know, it goes from 2 to 3, 2 to 3. Just the quality, which is big improvement. And then you have these support gems, Raging Cry, and that in combination with Roaring Prize means each Warcry has a minimum of 10 power, and that's how we generate the rage so fast, just by roaring, and then also stacking a lot of Warcry speed on the tree here, whereas as much as we can find, just in terms of weapons at 1. And then the other part was, of course, the Primal Hunger. This then, once you generate the rage, this just constantly keeps regenerating. It's almost like too easy. I don't know if this will get nerfed or not, but maybe not, because you're losing a lot of the downside of no rage effect is pretty hard. Because then you also can't use Berserk and stuff like that to get the benefit of the damage. And then the other thing was Walking Calamity. So I saw this in somebody's video. Unfortunately, I can't find it, so otherwise I would credit them. Walking Calamity and Rage Forge, and I just used Rage Forge 1 because Rage Forge 2 actually would probably decrease the amount of spending rage, because there's a chance to not spend the rage. But you actually just want to constantly spend the rage, because then, you know, it'll generate and spend it. So the big takeaway from that other video that I watched is that each comment actually procs Rage Forge. So it's just constantly procking the Rage Forge, and that means you're just constantly generating endurance charges like without doing anything. In order to do this for most other builds, they use most of the people use this red flare conduit, which then was corrupted to something to basically generate power charges, and then they path over to resonance, or they use a jewel or something like that to get to resonance and convert the power charges to endurance charges basically permanently. But again, I was starting this SSF and didn't have that. I just dropped that very recently from Kamasa vaults. But you know, you can basically keep up the endurance charges just for Weapon Calamity and Primal Hunger. And then the last kind of update that I found recently, which solved mana problems and basic quality of life, as well as kind of tankiness and defenses, is pathing over to Guts here. So I saw this as well, like Palestron also had this in his video, and I've seen it in other videos as well. But this, previously I was kind of running out of mana problem. I was running out of mana while trying to generate the Warrior Totems, because they are pretty pricey, so I was having to spam my mana potion. And actually, before switching over to Guts and either Adalui's or Life Tap, if you don't have Adalui's, you can just use Life Tap. But Adalui's is also a pretty big bonus to damage. I just put the Totem Mana Leech in here, and that basically solved my mana problems, which was super nice. You know, if I so in combination with Guts, this is, and like these three nodes around here is like % max life per endurance charge consumed. So you're consuming 3 endurance charges, and if you have all of these, so that's 6 for the mini ones and plus 3, so that's 9 times 3, 27 each time you, 27% of max life each time you consume, basically each time you generate a totem. And you know, this is only costing me 303 life, and that's definitely less than 27%. So I even just dropped one of these nodes. So it's only 7 times 3, 21% of that is like 30, I don't know, 360, 370, and that's like just pretty much more than enough to cancel out the cost of the Warrior Totem. So that covers the cost of generating them. And the other tankiness part was then I still have my mana pool instead of going, you know, a lot of people go blood magic to do essentially the same thing. But with Mind Over Matter, a decent mana pool, this is like an extra 1,000 EHP basically. The other thing I was thinking, if once I start using like the perfect Jeweler's orbs, I could slot in the Totem Mana Leech. I don't know if I have that. This one here, Font of Mana, and like this is 12%. That's like a pretty big leech roll. Like wings and stuff is only like 5 or 6, maybe 8 or something like that. I don't know. You slot this on there, and with 10 of them, like just generating crazy amounts of mana, that would be pretty good sustain for your mana pool with Mind Over Matter. So I might do that just for survivability if I don't want to just add more damage with my 5th socket there. And then getting into the tree, so the good thing, the like kind of main benefit of the Oracle Ascendancy, aside from the crit, is this unnamed Heartwood node. You get +1 to summon totems, but also totems die 6 seconds after their life is reduced to 0. So you basically, if you know you hop onto a Rippy Abyss, you just drop all your totems and then run away. Even if they get killed, even if the totems get killed, they just linger and then kill everything in their aftermath. Super nice quality of life. And then, of course, you have all of the crit stuff, inevitable crits. I mean, it's not like we're not scaling crit super hard or anything. You know, you can go to all the other videos about inevitable crit, and it's a whole graph, and they say something like try to target 25% crit chance and then get up to like 500% and more for crit bonus. Like, I'm not even close, obviously. But I'm kind of sitting around 15% crit chance. But the other thing is that this node here, which, you know, Dreamcore also goes over, War Cries inflict 3 critical weakness on enemies. This is basically up all the time at max because I'm constantly, constantly you drop a totem, roar, drop a totem, roar, drop a totem, roar. So this is basically critical weakness is up all the time on anything. Max critical weakness is up all the time on anything that lives more than one hit. And then the last nodes, the last ascendancy, the unseen path. This basically lets you pick all of these other kind of hidden nodes. So that's why the Oracle is great for SSF or as a starter, because it comes with all of these extra nodes which are much stronger than normal nodes. So going through the campaign, I actually rushed down here to get this node 1 to 37 lightning damage to attacks. It's like very strong. This is, double what you could get on a starting ring. So when I clicked that node, it was like, and these two nodes here is like a 30% increase in damage like during campaign. I've spec'd out of that because relative to in-game damage, it's not as much. But the Oracle Ascendancy, first of all, comes with kind of these big damage nodes, like a typical, these 15, 15, 15, 30, these two physical nodes here. So 2 points for like, 51% Phys damage. Whereas, here is like another kind of Phys damage wheel. It's like 4 points for 30, 55, for 4 points, plus some attack speeds. There's 2 points here. Plus this wheel here. And other big damage nodes, 30, 20, 12. And then these are the crit nodes, crit wheels here. Crit damage, big crit chance node here. This is why you want to have a big Phys weapon, because there's a lot of extra Phys damage. And if you're running just pure shapeshifting, there's another extra Phys, extra damage of Phys damage. So you need a high Phys damage weapon to take advantage of these. So this one here, this is extra fire, extra cold, extra lightning. And then this is a big one here, extra chaos. But it comes with this increased life cost of skills. But when you have Adaluis, that's actually really beneficial because it's increasing the life cost and thus increasing the damage due to Adaluis. So a big synergy there. And the other big thing about Oracle is skill effect duration. So you get a ton of extra skill effect duration here. And then the bear for Walking Calamity, like another 45% there. Whereas normally you're kind of restricted to just a bit here and some here. And then you'd have to roll down. I mean, I could take these if I wanted to, even more, but my Walking Calamity right now is, what is it sitting at? 46 seconds almost. That's a long time. Forge Hammer, you just set down a Forge Hammer. This lasts 28 seconds. And this is just big quality of life because you don't have to constantly spend time resetting all of your skills. They just kind of last a pretty long time. 23 seconds for the Warrior Totems. So this lets you, because you can scale the skill effect duration, this lets you get out 10 totems within that time, and then you can just constantly refresh them, basically. And that's how you kind of increase the damage. There's a few different ways of theorizing damage increases. Like you either hit really fast, or that's like kind of range characters. You either hit really fast, you either hit really hard. That's kind of like Hammer the Gods, like a big mace. You can do overlapping AoE. That's also kind of like a slam kind of thing. I mean, then obviously if you hit hard, hit fast, and overlap AoE, then it's like triple S tier builds, kind of, right? So in this case, it's kind of like most of the time when you're doing, the whole idea from GGG of a warrior slam build is to hit really hard and hit really slow. So because the totem has this hidden attack timer, you're hitting hard but hitting slow. But then we kind of circumvent that by just having 10 of them up at all times, basically. So you're kind of getting that hitting hard and hitting fast idea. I did test the Earth Shatter as well, but it seemed to me that you could only really get, even though you had 10 totems, it seemed to me that you could only ever have 6. And I couldn't test this, it's really hard to test, but maybe somebody else will test this, but it seemed to me like if you could constantly roar and constantly shatter the stone thingies, maybe that would be more efficient, which I showed in my last video. But most of the time, you kind of have to like jump around and avoid boss DPS or whatever. So at the end of the day, it was not as efficient, I found, as just dropping a rolling slam totem down for bossing, and they just kind of auto target. The Sunder I felt was on bossing was just too messy on the screen, and I couldn't see anything as it was happening. So that is basically it in terms of the passive tree, the gear. I went over my gear before, I think. But you know, the gear is nothing special. It's pretty mid, you know, +2 on the gloves, melee skills, and then only double attack. Again, the amulet +2 only. The other things I kind of crafted. This is kind of interesting. It dropped from that Fractured Lake map. This is the first +2 amulet I got, and then had extra 2 modifiers, so I could kind of do the global defenses, essence, and desecrate on this energy shield from body armor. And then the rings only double, you know, only double attacks, like nothing special. This is the kind of only unique I have, but you know, this is not adding damage, it's, you know, adding kind of skill speed. Check out the Dreamcore video again. You could also do other, you know, fun stuff like this unique talisman adds, you know, this is just the minion one, but adds increased move speed. So if you use that for move speed, or this one was kind of funny, it's basically a mini headhunter, but unfortunately you lose it after you next shapeshift. So I was just, this doesn't quite work. You're just constantly losing this, the buff. So I just kind of stuck with this skill speed one, but essentially that weapon doesn't really matter. It's just there to for the war cry speed, critical weakness, and generating the power. So in terms of the future, also in terms of the gear again, no catalysts on the rings, no anointment. You know, this is not corrupted, nothing's corrupted. So of course you could roll Giant's Blood in the future for increasing your DPS. You could roll Giant's Blood, then have either double mace or put on like a Sacred Flame or something for damage. You know, of course get more damage with a Perfect Jeweler's Orb for another socket. Anointment, so like easily, I don't know, like 2 times, 3 times damage from doing all of those things. But you know, as it is, I'm basically killing, almost going through the end game. Boss DPS, I mean boss points max. Of course, ritual is maxed for because I'm running ritual and abyss a lot. I kind of just completed T3 Zeshed. I don't do expedition too much, and I've actually never done Simulacrum before because my past build was like a Flicker Strike, which doesn't work with sacrifice, and power charges in there because there's no bodies for Profane Ritual. But this league, I'm actually going to try pushing this up to T4 later. And this maybe was the just ending on T3 Zeshed. So that's basically it. So in terms of future scaling potential, this is probably it. You know, the build is kind of smooth, but it is a tad slow. I've probably tried going into like a, you know, I'll probably try doing Flicker Strike again. See what Flicker Strike is like on an Oracle. I did finally drop a decent quarterstaff that I can craft on. And this is just T3 Zeshed. So maybe just talking a bit about the rotation. So rolling back here. So basically you roll back a bit more. So before the boss spawns, I just drop a lot of totems. Try to get as much as you can, probably up to 10. When the boss spawns, I throw down the Forge Hammer. Then you roar. Actually, you should roar first, throw down the Forge Hammer, because that the Forge Hammer, the first roar is for the armor breaking. So this breaks just a crazy amount of armor because it's, as far as I understand, it's essentially just proccing constantly. So each time and then you drop these, so I get 3 of these totems, the shockwave totems, and those, every time those are hitting, those proc the fissure. So you can imagine there's 3 of them, and let's say even just hit once per second. It's a bit faster than that, but like 3 hits per second, armor breaking 4,000. You know, the boss's armor is going to be shredded pretty quickly. And the other benefit of that is if you were to really spec into kind of leap slam, this causes 500 more stun buildup on when consuming fully broken arms. So the armor is basically constantly broken, and then you have 500 stun buildup. So right now, this stun buildup is pretty high, I would say. I mean, I haven't even spec'd into this, but stun buildup is pretty high, you know, 35,000%, and then times 5 again. So this could be spec'd into, and then you could do other things with fully stunned enemies. Sorry, there's this other one that was really interesting, you know, lucky damage against heavy stun enemies, and there's a lot of other stuff in terms of heavy stunned enemies, you know, more damage, heavy stunned enemies. There's another one that was like fire damage for heavy stunned enemies. And then going back to so you drop down the Forge Hammer, you roar, drop down the Forge Hammer, shockwave totems, and then just keep dropping these. Oh, then of course Thunderstorm for guaranteed shock. That's for sure going to get nerfed in the future. And then you just constantly just drop down more totems and let them do its thing. And then also Rolling Slam has pretty high stun build-up itself. It's not as crazy as a Leap Slam. But the boss will get stunned pretty quickly, I would say. And that's it for now. It's a pretty long video. We'll see if I take this any farther. Anyways, happy hunting and peace out.